Straight up. Welcome to your Happy Bible Study. I'm Lisa Dennis Sparks, and you're watching Christians United Broadcasting Network. CUBN, where we want to see you be encouraged in Jesus' name. Welcome back to your Happy Bible Study on CUBN. Glory to God. Let's get back into it. We are in Proverbs chapter 26 and verse 26. Whose hatred is covered by deceit. His wickedness shall be showed before the whole congregation. Reekage. Okay? It's talking about the words of a talebearer. And it's talking about someone with burning lips and a wicked heart. They're causing trouble. Okay? He that hateth dissembleth with his lips, he layeth up deceit within him. When he speaketh fair, which is good, okay, and fine, believe him not. For there are 7 abominations in his heart, whose hatred is covered by deceit. His hatred is covered by deceit. He is smiling in your face, but he wants to kill you. His wickedness shall be showed before the whole congregation at some point. In verse 27, whoso diggeth a pit shall fall therein. That means if you plan some kind of a snare for somebody else, you are going to fall into it. And he that rolleth a stone, it will return upon him. And if you roll a stone up a hill and then you let go of it and you try to outrun it, it's going to run over you. A lying tongue hateth those that are afflicted by it. So when someone lies to you, they show you their disrespect for you. And a flattering mouth worketh ruin. That's why I'm always leery of someone who comes to my wall and just starts flattering me. And I'm like, stop. Okay? Stop. I don't want to hear any of that. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear, hey, I love Jesus. I'm learning. That's what I want to hear. Okay? I don't want to hear any flatteries toward myself. I don't want to hear that. Because it worketh ruin. A flattering mouth worketh ruin. And you're foolish if you fall into that trap of someone who flatters you, just constantly flatters you. I am on my guard from people that do that. Okay? We got to the end of chapter 26. Let's go ahead and go over to our, 26 to 28. Let's go ahead and go over and get into our Exodus study. That's fun. Exodus, we're at chapter 16. Okay, Troy, I'm going to be ready for that map now, if you have it. Um, okay. Glory to God. We are going to start in chapter 16, verse 1 of Exodus. I hear an echo. Troy. Thank you. We're going to start chapter 16, verse 1. And I'm going to show you, Troy's going to put up a map so you can see what this is talking about. In verse 1 of Exodus chapter 1, and they took their journey from Elim. Now, I want you to look at this map. It says Egypt and Israel. You see that part? Look to the left, the green, and you will see the Exodus route. They came from Goshen, which is top left outside of the picture. But look at the route that comes down that Egyptian peninsula all the way down. And then at the bottom of that peninsula, where it says Straits of Tiran, down there, just above where it says Straits of Tiran, that is where the Hebrews crossed the Red Sea. That body of water there. There you go. See that? Perfect, Troy. Thank you. They crossed right there at the Straits of Tiran over to the wilderness of Shur, and then see Marah right there to the right of the wilderness of Shur, and then came straight down, and then you see where it says wilderness of Sin. It's talking about a location. And then they went across to Meribah, and then up, follow the green arrows up, and then you see Mount Sinai above that. You see the wilderness of Sinai to the right, and then Mount Sinai. You see it there? That is their route that they took. And we're going to talk about that very thing in this first verse. And they took their journey from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came into the wilderness of Sin. And that wilderness of Sin, remember seeing that on the map? Which is between Elim and Sinai. On the 15th day of the second month after their departing out of the land of Egypt. So 15 days after the 15th day of the second month, so about 45 days after they left Goshen, left Egypt. They were crossing the Red Sea, going into the wilderness of Sin, and then back up to Mount Sinai. In verse 2, and the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. Now the murmurers are the children of wickedness. They're murmuring against God. In verse 3, and the children of Israel said unto them, would to God we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots, and when we did eat bread to the full. For ye have brought us forth into this wilderness, to kill this whole assembly with hunger. Isn't that funny? How they can murmur. They say they would prefer to still be slaves in Egypt where there's food. They sat by the flesh pots and ate bread to the full. They're like, oh, well, it's better to be a slave in Egypt than to be out here, because at least there's food in Egypt. And then they accuse the accuser of the brethren. Who's the accuser of the brethren? Satan. For ye have brought us forth into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. You think, how in the world can they murmur like that and think like that after seeing the miracles, how God protected Israel while he afflicted Egypt, and to see the Red Sea parted and the children of Israel walked through, and then the waters come down over the top of Pharaoh and his soldiers. How can they see that and still murmur against God and not believe him? They're just programming, I think. The children of evil, I think they are just programmed to say and do what they do. Then verse 4, then said the Lord unto Moses, behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you. These are for the real children of God that aren't murmuring against God. And the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law or no. So he's proving them. In verse 5, and it shall come to pass that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. So on the 6th day, God wanted that, which would be Thursday evening to Friday evening, they were to bring in twice what they usually did on a single day, because they needed to not go for any on the Sabbath. So that way they would have a portion on the Sabbath as well. And remember, they were only supposed to have what they were going to get that day on all the rest of the days. They didn't go out and collect a week's worth. You could only collect 1 day's worth. And then on the 6th day, you collected 2 days worth, because you couldn't go out and find anything on the Sabbath. In verse 6, and Moses and Aaron said unto all the children of Israel, at even then ye shall know that the Lord hath brought you out from the land of Egypt. And in the morning then ye shall see the glory of the Lord, for that he heareth your murmurings against the Lord. He hears. And what are we that ye murmur against us? He's talking to those that are murmuring. In verse 8, and Moses said, this shall be when the Lord shall give you in the evening flesh to eat, and in the morning bread to the full, for that the Lord heareth your murmurings which ye murmur against him. And what are we? Your murmurings are not against us, but against the Lord. So Moses is training them. When you complain, and this is true to this day, when you complain about anything that's happening in your life, you're complaining against God, who is responsible for these things in your life. In verse 9, and Moses spake unto Aaron, say unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, come near before the Lord, for he hath heard your murmurings. Reekage. And it came to pass, as Aaron spake unto the whole congregation of the children of Israel, that they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. Cool. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel. Reekage. Speak unto them, saying, at even ye shall eat flesh, and in the morning ye shall be filled with bread, and ye shall know that I am the Lord your God. And it came to pass that at even the quails came up and covered the camp. And in the morning the dew lay round about the host. So he brought flocks of quail in to the camp for the people. And then in the mornings they would go out and collect the manna, which was like bread. And it was on the dew of the ground. And it was like a honey bread. In verse 14, and when the dew that lay was gone up, behold, upon the face of the wilderness there lay a small round thing, as small as the hoarfrost on the ground. A round thing, like a wafer. And when the children of Israel saw it, they said to one another, it is manna, For they wist not what it was. This is the food of the angels, manna from heaven. And they wist not what it was. And Moses said unto them, This is the bread which the Lord hath given you to eat. This is bread. In verse 16, This is the thing which the Lord hath commanded. Gather of it every man according to his eating. An omer for every man. Now, an omer is 1/10 of an ephah. So you have an omer for every man, according to the number of your persons. Take ye every man for them which are in his tents. So they took 1/10 of an ephah, which is an omer, for each person in their household. In verse 17, and the children of Israel did so, and gathered some more, some less. And when they did meet it with an omer, they measured it. He that gathered much had nothing left over, and he that gathered little had no lack. Isn't that interesting? They gathered every man according to his eating. And Moses said, Let no man leave of it till the morning. He's saying, don't try to save it and eat more of it later because it won't keep. Notwithstanding, they hearkened not unto Moses, but some of them left of it until the morning, tried to keep it till morning for the next day, and it bred worms and stank. And Moses was wroth with them. So God told them, but they don't listen. The wicked do not have an ear to hear or an eye to see. The hearing ear and the seeing eye, the Lord hath made both of them. That's Proverbs 20:12. In verse 21, and they gathered it every morning, every man according to his eating. And when the sun waxed hot, it melted. In verse 22, and it came to pass that on the 6th day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for one man. And all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moses. In verse 23 of Exodus chapter 16, and he said unto them, This is that which the Lord hath said. Tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto the Lord. Bake that which ye will bake today, and seethe that ye will seethe. And that which remaineth over lay up for you to be kept until the morning. Let me look at what seethe is here. To seethe, bubble up as a result of being boiled. Boil, bubble, simmer, foam, froth, fizz, effervescence. Archaic, to cook food by boiling it in a liquid. I think that's what it's talking about. So it's saying, bake that which ye will bake today, and seethe that ye will seethe. Like the quail. You know, if you boil the quail and cook it, you can preserve it longer. And that which remaineth over lay up for you to be kept until the morning. And that is only on the Sabbath. In verse 24, and they laid it up till the morning as Moses bade, and it did not stink, neither was there any worm therein. So this is miraculous. It depends on what day it is. If it's like, if they gather it on a Monday, you can't keep it till Tuesday because then Tuesday morning it's got worms and it stinks. It's gone bad. But if you lay it up on the 6th day, you bake it and you seethe it, which would be to boil the quail, and it will hold over until the next day for the Sabbath, and it won't stink and have worms in it because they're doing it like the Lord said. If you do it like the Lord said, then it will be preserved. Only on the Sabbath day, only on the sixth day for the Sabbath, on the seventh, and not any other day. The Lord is showing them how he's got control over all these things. In verse 25, and Moses said, eat that today, for today is a Sabbath unto the Lord. Today ye shall not find it in the field. Those that went out into the field to gather manna on the Sabbath didn't find any. In verse 26, 6 days ye shall gather it, but on the seventh day, which is the Sabbath, in it there shall be none. So if you go out on the Sabbath trying to find more manna and quail, there is none to be found. In verse 27, and it came to pass that there went out some of the people on the seventh day for to gather, and they found none. What are they doing? They're not listening to the Lord, are they? In verse 28, and the Lord said unto Moses, how long refuse ye to keep my commandments and my laws? In verse 29, see, for that the Lord hath given you the Sabbath, therefore he giveth you on the sixth day the bread of 2 days. Abide ye every man in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the seventh day. It was a day to rest and spend with your family at home. In verse 30, so the people rested on the seventh day. This is where God is teaching them about the Sabbath day. In verse 31, and the house of Israel called the name thereof manna. And it was like coriander seed, white. And the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. It's a form of a bread. And Moses said, this is the thing which the Lord commandeth. Fill an omer of it to be kept for your generations, that they may see the bread wherewith I have fed you in the wilderness, when I brought you forth from the land of Egypt. So they had an omer of the manna collected, and they put it inside the ark. In verse 33, and Moses said unto Aaron, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll start again. We'll start again in Exodus chapter 16 and verse 33 when we come back. Straight up.